There's none. I'd like to request permission of my elders to speak.
That's for the brother. No.
We're going to rise and recite the Moorish prayer. All those who wish to join, stand up and face the east. Feet on a 45-degree angle. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. All those who do not wish to join in, please stay seated and please stay quiet. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
My salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through his holy prophet.
Through his holy prophet.
Noble Talib.
Through all the.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, y'all. I got a phone call yesterday from one of the elders, and was talking, saying that some of our people don't have no act right. Act right. They don't know how to act. A lot of people get, a lot of people get a lot of this information and they go buck wild, they go crazy. But one thing that's important is that once we start coming into this science, once we start coming into this information, a person should transform. A person should kind of, like even though you might feel like you've been in a mold, like you can break out of that mold. You might feel you've been stuck, but you can break out of that mold. It's like I said before, when I used that quote from DMX, where he said, that was sticking in my mind. Yeah, it just escaped me just that fast. It doesn't have to be the way it is, you say it is, just because for the past 20 years every day it is. It doesn't have to be the way it is, you say it is, just because for the past 20 years every day it is. That means that, all right, I've been this way for 20 years. I'll be 41 in a couple days, 5 days. Yeah, in 5 days, right? So, the way I was when I was 20, I'm not at all that way now. In fact, the way I was when I was 35, I'm not that way right now. When I was 35, I was just coming into this information, but I had already been a scholar. I had already been studying and researching so much other stuff that when I got here, it was just like, all right, cool. Everything comes together now. Now everything is making sense. But from 20 to 30 to 35 to now, you're looking at a whole different dude. Because back then I was like loose cannon. I had a real crappy attitude, real nasty attitude. Talk to people any kind of way I want and didn't care about hurting nobody's feelings, none of that. But nonetheless, you don't have to stay that way. Periodically we talk about astrology and we talk about getting astrological readings and charts and things like that. So when you look at a natal chart is a blueprint of the exact moment when you came through the East Gate, you came onto this planet. And it gives you a blueprint of your life. So it may say, you know, you have this quality, you don't have that one, you have this one, and you don't have that one. Just because you're born with a certain quality, if it's, let's just say it's a bad one, doesn't necessarily mean you got to keep it, because you've been born with it. Right? All right, you got a nasty attitude. That's in your chart. I won't pick on no particular signs. But some astrological signs actually say that about people, that they're going to have a bad attitude, because that's just what that sign gave you. So we won't pick on no particular signs. We'll pick on no particular people. No, I'm just messing with you. But the thing is this. It doesn't have to stay that way. So when you come into the science and you come into this information and this knowledge, you should make some type of transformation. I'm gonna read a couple things out of this Circle 7 Holy Quran. But before I do, I'll hold it up so show all y'all familiar with it. And if anybody who's not familiar with it, you can take a quick peek at it. This I say it all the time, but when I first got this book, I opened it up and I was reading through the first couple chapters. And I think by the time I got to chapter 3, I was like that. I was like, nah, I'm not messing with this book. Started talking about Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and all of that other stuff. And I'm like, hold up. Now, you know what I'm saying? Now, I already know, so when I'm looking at here, but it wasn't until, I don't know when it was, but I picked it up one day, for whatever reason. And I went back to chapter 1, right? I'm reading chapter 1, and I'm like, huh? Maybe 2 years ago? Yeah, I picked it up, and I got to chapter 1, and I did this. Right? I was like, wait. I was like, hold up. And I started reading, and I'm like, I ain't seen this the first time. You know what happened? I changed. I transformed from the guy that bought the book to the guy who has the book. Right? And we all have that capability. I'll just read this first highlighted part of chapter 1, and then I'll go back to what I was doing. That's the creation and fall of man, chapter 1, from the Circle 7 Holy Quran. And let me say this before I move on with that. This book says divinely prepared by Prophet Noble Ali, which of course means that he didn't write it. It was prepared by him. It was put together as a collective of works. Right? So you look at this book, and then you look at any other book of divinity, and they all have lessons. They all have a message. There's something in those books if you can interpret what you're reading. I couldn't interpret what I was reading when I first picked this up. That's why I threw it. That's why I tossed it and chucked it. I said, all right, I'm going back to figure something else out. But whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Torah, whatever book it is that you have, and those ain't the only divine books, there are a number of them. Those are just some of the most popular. There's a number of them, but it's a message in all of them. So in chapter 1, it says, the creation and fall of man. It says, time never was when man was not. And I read that first line, and I pulled back up the book, and I'm like, and my mind just got to racing. Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject unto change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. Bodies and souls of men are finite things, and they will change. Yea, from the finite point of view from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. But man himself is not the body, nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. So, if man is not the body, if he is a soul and the spirit of Allah, then that means he's divine. That means that he's divine. And if he's divine, then that means he can, because it says right here that, yeah, you will change. If it says right here that you're divine, then you can do whatever you want to do. Change. Change ain't the most terrible thing in the world, but change is the most scary thing. People are afraid of change. Listen, if there's a possibility that you're going to lose your job, that's change. You be fearing that. You'll sit around and you'll run around like a chicken with no head trying to figure out what you're going to do over the next time. You ain't lost a job yet. It's just a possibility. But the fear of change is the only constant that you're going to face in the world. There's nothing wrong with it. I put that on the board, universal, divine, and common law. So we're going to touch on some of all of it today. Two things I want to read, chapter 25, of course, the Holy Covenant of the Asiatic nation. You know what? Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother hath given you suck. Let the bonds of affection, therefore, unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate into the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own love. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, and your love to each other. Now, I'm going to read the 5th sentence again, because that brings that whole chapter into perspective. It says, shows how the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, and your love to each other. Now, in chapter 25, it talks about uplifting your brother and uplifting your sister, right? So, an untrained mind or an unlearned mind would think that I'm talking about the brother that my mother gave birth to, or the sister that my mother gave birth to. But this sentence says, shows how the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race. Me and my brother and my sister and my father don't make the whole race. So then it's got to be talking about all of y'all being my brothers and sisters. It's got to be saying that if I can do something to help you, then I should. That's what it's saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right. Now, I never had an issue with helping my brothers and sisters. At all. Y'all, you know that. Anybody who knows me know that. What I have an issue with is my brothers and sisters not wanting to help themselves. What I have is an issue with people being lazy and not wanting to do their part in uplifting themselves. People who really know me know that angers me, right? Throws me into a whole nother, to 30 years old. Takes me back to that dude. But I don't want to be that dude. But the whole thing, hold on. I hate to do it. I had to push y'all in the corner if y'all keep it up. Put y'all in the corner. The thing about chapter 25, why it spoke to me, is because I clearly understood it the first time I read it. Unlike the rest of the book, I understand that the father that they're talking about is not my biological father. But we're talking universal principles. We're talking divine principles. We're talking absolute law. People want to learn law. They say, hey man, one of the brothers that was here last week said, man, you said you was going to start going in on some law, and man, you ain't do it yet. Right? But how you going to be worried about this law if you don't know nothing about those two?
Right.
If you think that these two don't have everything to do with this one, or this one don't have everything to do with these two, then you don't need to be, you know what I'm saying? You don't need to be pushing for these two at all. I mean, for this one at all. You need to get stuck up top, universal and divine law. We did a class on chapter 5. I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. But I think the next class we may do it again. That was the first class when I used one of those, when I drew all of the, I used a board. But I'm going to read chapter 5, and then we can discuss it. Chapter 5. After the feast, the homeward journey, the missing Jesus, the search for him, his parents find him in the temple. He goes with them to Nazareth. Symbolic meaning of the carpenter's tools. Now, the symbolic meaning of the carpenter's tools is where I want to focus as we read this. But I'm going to read the whole chapter so we can fall into the use of the carpenter's tools. The great feast of the Pasch was ended, and the Nazarenes were journeying toward their homes. And they were in Samaria, and Mary said, where is my son? No one has seen the boy. And Joseph sought among their kindred, who were on their way to Galilee, but they had seen him not. Then Joseph, Mary, and the son of Zebedee returned and sought through all Jerusalem, but they could find him not. And Mary asked the guards, had they seen Jesus, a little boy of about 12 years old. Now keep in mind, these are lessons. Okay? So don't get spooked out while I'm talking about Jesus and Mary. The guards replied, yes, he is in the temple, now disputing with the doctors of law. And they went in, and they found him as the guards had said. And Mary said, why, Jesus, why do you treat your parents thus? Lo, we have sought 2 days for you. We feared some great harm had overtaken you. And Jesus said, do you not know that I must be about my Father's work? But he went round and pressed the hand of every doctor of the law and said, I trust that we meet again. And then he went forth with his parents on their way to Nazareth. To Nazareth. And when they reached their home, he wrought with Joseph as a carpenter. One day, as he was bringing forth the tools for work, he said, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind, where things were made of thought and where we build character. The workshop of the mind, how you think, how you move, how you act. Everything comes from your mind, right? I sat that book down, that comes from my mind. I'm walking, it comes from here. Everything that you do, everything that you think, everything that you feel comes from your mind. Everything. These tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind, where things were made of thought and where we build up character. We use the square to measure our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way and make the corners of our conduct square. Let me use the board for a second. I'm going to erase this. Anybody familiar with carpenter's tool?
Yeah.
So what's a square look like?
Four angles.
L, or a 90-degree angle, right? That's a square. Now, if I need to make a straight line, I can use that. Probably not that one, that's a little crooked. But if I had an actual square, I could use that to make a straight line. Right? So all of these crooked ways, all of these crooked thoughts, all of these crooked feelings that we have, right? Even though we ain't going to actually take a square and put the square on our body to say that we're going to make straight anything out of us, we're talking about the workshop of the mind, right? You can create whatever you want in your mind. Anything that you want, you can create in your mind, your thoughts, right? It says we use the square to measure all of our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way and make the corners of our conduct square. So let's talk about the square and making the corners of our conduct square. What I talked about a second ago. Once you start coming into degrees of higher learning, you have to straighten up the way you think. You have to straighten up the way you move. See, because you get this information, and there's a lot of people who want it. There's a lot of people who want it for whatever reason. Some people want it for get out of jail free cards. Some people want it so they can say, well, I don't want to have to pay this ticket. That's not what it's about. We're talking universal and divine principles. We're talking about us as divine beings, elevating to that of what our foremothers and forefathers once were. Because we done fell so low from grace till it's ridiculous. Because we shouldn't have to read this, we should know this. We use the compass to draw circles around our passions and desires and keep them in bounds of righteousness. What's the compass look like?
It's a point
Angle.
with a,
With a pivot.
yeah.
Upside down, V. Look, you want that one? Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes it
Compass. Y'all remember the compass when we was in school?
Yeah.
You know, make little circles, make a perfect circle. We use the compass to draw circles around our passions and desires and keep them in the bounds of righteousness. How many people in here, just honestly by show of hands, how many of y'all got a passion?
Got what?
A passion. Everybody's hand should be up. Everybody should love one thing at least, right? So you didn't raise your hand. Don't put the camera on the screen. You didn't raise your hand, did you? Yeah, you. You.
my daughter. Oh, I was focusing on it.
You're focusing on that. That pendulum is your passion. I'm messing with you. Everybody should have raised their hands when I ask who has a passion. Because a passion is a love for a thing, right? Maybe?
Yes.
Yes.
What else would it be?
Desire, just like you said,
But it said passions and desires. Right.
Because you get inflamed, you know, your passion is inflamed, you know, you're ready to beat your heart out of somebody, and that's passion.
She's trying to take me back to 30, right? I ain't letting you take me back to, but she's right. Because that can be a passion. And unfortunately, we share that. Y'all know that, I'm a fighter. Unfortunately. I ain't gonna talk about that though. So, for one thing, so when I asked about a passion, everybody should have raised their hand. A passion would be like an extreme love for a thing. Like, I really like this and like this, and that one passion, first and foremost, should be you. First and foremost, forget about cars, forget about the love for riding roller coaster, forget that. The very first passion should be you. Your love for you. You ain't got no love for you, then all else don't matter.
You don't even know if somebody's loving you or not.
What else matters if you don't love yourself?
Nothing.
If I don't love me, I can't love none of y'all. I can't love none of y'all if I don't love me. That's what I was told. One comes before two in every language. That means put yourself first, all the time. Those desires, like we all got desires. One of my biggest desires is learning. Like I love to learn. Like I get silly, giggling when I be learning. Cause you know, I can't explain. Y'all, some of y'all know. And some of y'all the same way. I know who Haru is. Haru, this is my man. Because I ain't seen him in a while, so I'm kidding, right? Haru like a jealous girlfriend, right? Like you got that book? I want one. But the thing is, that's a great thing to have because he wants to learn. He's like, no, where you get that? But that's a great thing to have because he has that. That's why we get along. We got, you know what I'm saying? But those desires and those passions, important. Recognize your desires. Recognize your passions. Embrace them. And then go after them. Now, but did I build a split?
I'm right here.
What you know hide in the corner, man? Oh, y'all back at Abdullah. Abdullah told me about a documentary called Hidden Secrets in Plain Sight. He told me about it in 2012. I didn't watch it until December of 2016. Dude, listen, Abdullah give me so much stuff that it ain't possible for me to get at all. You know what I'm saying? Because he just keeps the information coming, right? Now, I watched this documentary. And it's a documentary, it's long, it's almost 4 hours. It's 23 parts. And they talking about how in all of these different cities across the earth, you got monuments, you got buildings, you got statues, you got all of this different stuff all around the earth that's astrologically and geographically aligned. I'm talking you, and it's all based out of Kemet. I'm talking so symmetrical to the most finite point. I'm talking a building here and a building where Haru is, and the gardens in between are symmetrical to the gardens in another place, in another city, and it all stems from Kemet. Now I'm watching this documentary, and I'm just lost, right? Now, what happened is, it actually just picked me up and took me back to being 10, right? So now I'm sitting over here, I'm 10 years old, and I remember it. Because you remember last week I told you, we don't ever forget. It's not possible for you to forget anything. You remember everything that's happened to you in your life. You just need something to remind you of what happened. So now here I am, I'm 10 years old. Whose reporter is this? He sold in it today. I ain't messing with you. So it took me back to being 10 years old, right? When I was 10, I used to draw everything. Buildings, houses, cars. I didn't really draw too many people. Drew a lot of cartoon figures, Transformers and stuff like that, right? The only thing that stopped me from drawing so much was football. I found another passion. And I put that first one down. You know, me and my cousins, man, we used to talk about being architects. We used to talk about designing our own homes, our own buildings, and all kinds of stuff. And I forgot about it all. Or did I? I said we couldn't forget. No, it just, another passion just pushed that one to the side until I saw that documentary. When I watched that documentary, I lost my mind. I went upstairs, I got my compass, I got a ruler, I got a protractor, I got some paper, some pencils, and got to work. Started drawing Sri Yantras. Y'all know what the Sri Yantras is?
Yeah.
Started drawing Sri Yantras, started drawing flowers of life, just started creating all kinds of images and all kinds of stuff. I was lost in that passion. But that was one that I didn't nurture because I let another passion take over. And then I wasn't drawing or playing football. Another passion pushed football, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If you have a certain desire or a certain passion, and it speaks to your soul, nourish it. If you see your children have a certain passion, and it speaks to their soul, nourish it. Encourage it. We use the compass to draw circles around our passions and desires and keep them in the bounds of righteousness. We use the axe to cut away the knotty, useless, and ungainly parts that make the character symmetrical. You know what an axe looks like, right? There's an axe. Axe hatchet. That's what we was just talking about a second ago. We was talking about cutting away the useless, knotty, and unsightly parts of us once we start to come into degrees of higher learning. Because everybody has, anybody who sits here and says that they didn't have or don't have parts of themselves that can go, you just lying. Flat out, you just lying. I'm willing to stand here and tell you that I had a nasty attitude, that I didn't care about most. I didn't care about most things. I never said I didn't care about me, I just didn't care about most things. And I didn't care about how I said, what I said, when I said it, where or nothing. I just was. Until somebody brought it to my attention. Why is your attitude so nasty? Why are you so mean to people? And then I had to actually do what I asked people to do last week, look in the mirror and question myself. And then come to terms, and then start to make changes. So we can use that axe, all of these carpenter's tools in the workshop of the mind, to start to chop away at the ungainly, the knotty, and all these other parts of us to make ourselves symmetrical because we can. We use the hammer to drive home the truth and pound it in until it is a part of every part. How many people never use the hammer? I know everybody's seen the hammer, but how many people never use the hammer? You just don't. I was on the phone with her one day, right? Don't put the camera on. But I'm on the phone with her one day, and we just talking, right? And then she works in construction. All I hear is, she got a jackhammer. All in my ear. A jackhammer. Anyway. Driving home the truth. Driving home the truth is something that most people don't want to do and that most people can't accept. Driving home the truth is something that most people don't want to do and what most people don't want to accept. Because that truth hurts. That's not symmetrical, but y'all get it. Driving home the truth. When you can look yourself in the eyes and you can admit to yourself that you got a problem, only at that moment can you start to fix it. I can sit here and tell you over and over and over and over and over. I can tell you 50, 11 times the same thing. If you can't drive home the truth in your own mind, in the workshop of your own mind, you can't change your reality. And you got to keep in mind that decisions you make are going to shape your life forever. The decisions you make are going to shape your life forever. So you make a decision 10 years ago, it has some effect on today. But it doesn't have to be your reality forever. Just because it has an effect on today doesn't mean it has to be a certain way forever. Like we said a second ago, it doesn't have to be the way it is you say it is, just because for the past 20 years, every day it is. Things change. We use the plane to smooth out the rough, uneven surfaces of joint, and block and board, to go build the temple for the truth. Smooth and rough. It's been smooth and rough since we were children. Either you was in school and school was hard and it was rough for you to learn. You was in school, you got picked on, you got laughed at by other children. You was in school, you got bullied, beat up because you couldn't fight or because you didn't want to fight. Some people carry that into adulthood. And it's still smooth. I mean, it's still rough. Thank you. It's still rough. Here I am about to be 41. I can still be suffering from what happened to me in first grade when I was 5. If I was getting teased, if they said, listen, y'all, I was in the 9th grade. There was a dude named Ed Hill. And Ed, if you ever see this, you know who you are. You're gonna remember because you didn't forget, right? This dude was sitting behind me in Algebra 1, Mr. Harmon's class. See how things affect you? You remember everything. I was in Martin Luther King High School, right up there, Seten and Haines Street. My mom used to get on me. Oh, you better start brushing your hair. Sometimes I ain't brushing my hair, sometimes I bounce, right? It was Ed Hill that made me start brushing my hair. Because this fool sat behind me and brushed my hair. If you ever see this, I remember y'all. But it's the rough times to make you smooth things out. Y'all stop laughing. Because I'm going to go back to 30 in a couple seconds. Real talk though. It's the rough times. All right? Huh? That's rough, man. Listen, you see how y'all laugh?
Yeah.
And I'm laughing with y'all.
Yeah.
But everybody in Algebra 1 laughed too, and I wasn't laughing with them. You understand? I did.
You're a strong person too, right?
It did.
Made you think you should have listened to your mama to be
Yeah.
Well, you know,
I'm gonna laugh at you now every time I see you.
that's fine. Just don't pull out no brush. Anyway, we use the plane to smooth the rough, uneven surfaces of joint. We got a lot of rough and uneven surfaces of joint within our character, within our bodies, within our minds. Now, I'll give you an example, and I'm not picking on nobody. I'm gonna just say this. For all of y'all who are learners, for all of y'all who claim to be scholars, but won't correct your language. That's an uneven joint. That's rough as hell, and you need that plane. You need that plane. See, because if we can't correct our language, that's where it stops. What they say, that's where the buck stops, or something like that. That's it. That's where it's because you can't correct your language, right? How you going to teach somebody something if you can't even speak properly? Each one teach one. That's an old motto, right? But how can you teach the next person if you can't correct your language? Everybody in this room knows that we ain't black. Her turban is black. And ain't one of us in here fit that script. Not one of us. Everybody in here knows that we're not black people. But some people in here still call us black people. Some people in here still say, well, James, he raised his hand, so he must be one of them. Oh, you want to say something?
No.
Oh. And some of us still in here called Europeans or Albanians white people. If you can't correct that, don't even attempt to teach nobody nothing. Because come on man, you gotta smooth out your joints. You gotta make your joints straight. Because if it's crooked, if I'm looking straight down, I can't see down there, but I straighten it, I can see straight to move. And I can send a message from me straight to move, and he can send it back because the joint is straight now. But if the joint is crooked or if it's rough and it's got knots no, then there's no message going to be sent. Because it's too much work. It's got to go over here, under the table, over the flower pot. Smooth it out. Smooth it out. In the workshop of the mind, because this is where it all starts, in the mind. If you can't do it in the mind, you can't do it anywhere. The chisel, the line, the plumbing, and the saw all have their uses in the workshop of the mind. And then this ladder with the trinity of steps, faith, hope, and love. On it we climb up to the dome of purity and life. Trinity. That's a little ladder with 3 steps. That's a little ladder with 3 steps. Is it 3 steps or 2? Yeah? 2 ladders. Trinity of life. What's the Trinity of life?
Mother, Son, Father.
Mother, Son, and Father. Right? What else? Belief, faith, fruition. Anything else? Faith, hope, and love. Anything else? These is antithesis and synthesis. So we just named 4 different things, right? 4 different things, right? And they're all right. Because your trinity of life is your trinity of life. Who can tell you that you're wrong? We talking divine principles. We talking universal principles. We talking divine and universal law. Who can tell you that your trinity of life, what? Super what? Supreme God and one. Who can tell you that your trinity of life is incorrect? Mother, father, and son. If I'm my mother's son, I should do everything under the sun to honor my mother, to respect my mother, because I'm a reflection of her. I should do everything under the sun to honor and respect my father, because I'm a reflection of him. Regardless of who my mother is or who my father is, nonetheless, they are my mother and father. And you must respect your mother and father. The universe ain't gonna have it no other way. If you don't, you'll get yours. The universe ain't, listen, I talked about divine books, right? In another divine book, it says that you don't have to say it. You only need thinking. You don't gotta say it. All you need to do is think it. So I can be sitting around, and just because I don't say certain things doesn't mean a thing. If I'm thinking it, it's just as good as me saying it, because I said it to me. If I think it, then I've said it to me. I don't have to verbalize anything. On the 12-step ladder, we ascend until we reach the pinnacle of life, which is spent to build the temple of perfected man. When I did that chart, when I drew all of that stuff out, I drew a 12-step ladder. And I put the zodiac on there. I went from Aries, and I went all the way up to Pisces. And at the top, I think I drew a picture of the sun. Perfected man ain't never gonna be. Never. It's not gonna happen. We just read a second ago that man is finite. Not infinite, finite. That means it's going to come to an end. Your soul will go on to the next one. But man is finite. That means this time is going to come to an end. But does that mean that you shouldn't try to ascend that 12-step ladder? You're supposed to try to get to the top. You're supposed to achieve or attempt to achieve perfected man. You're supposed to strive for that. But if you don't go through all of the steps that we just talked about, if you ain't going to try to use this square to straighten out your crooked edges, if you ain't going to use this compass to sit there and draw circles around your passions and your desires and try to make your life even better, you're not going to use this axe to chop away the naughty, ungainly, and ugly sights. If you ain't going to use the hammer to drive home the truth. See, this is one of the biggest ones right here. Because so many of us don't want to accept our truth. We don't want to look in the mirror and say, I'm twisted.
This is chapter 1, the continuation of chapter 1. It says, man cannot die. Spirit man is one with Allah. While Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe on the plane of soul, the sea will have full opened out, will have unfolded in the holy breath. Garb of soul will then have served this purpose well. Man will need it nevermore, and it will pass and be no more. And man will then be attained until the blessedness of the perfectness and be at one with Allah.
Read again the part about man and focus.
When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul,
That's it. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul. Man. Who's man's biggest foe? So, if you just, so talking about every foe on the plane of soul. Now, your biggest foe is always going to be you. You're going to always be your biggest problem. Not the so-called white man, not this corrupt, not police, you. Because you make the decisions that affect your life. If you can't do what we just talked about, if you can't do what chapter 5 is talking about, you in the workshop of the mind, you don't have to take a hammer and bang yourself in the hand. Just take an imaginary hammer and just start driving home that truth. It might hurt. Now, for instance, when you last week you said when you found out the truth about certain things, it hurt like nobody knows. But you were willing to still take that, and because you could have just said, oh, no. I'm going to stay here because I'm comfortable. I'm not going to drive home this truth. I'm going to stay here because I'm comfortable. You didn't do that. You drove home that truth. You started to use that compass to straighten out all of those crooked lines. And she's an elder, yo. And she did it. A lot of us getting this information young. We getting this information long before we our grandparents, things of that nature. So while we get it, we got to use it. We can't just let it go by the wayside. If we continue to let it go by the wayside, then we only hurt ourselves. What you talking about, man? No, we doing this for you, bro. That's the first time he ever made noise in class. He normally be rocking. He looking good. His daddy delivered him, yo. His daddy delivered him. That stuff we just did was out of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, divinely prepared by Prophet Noble Ali. If you don't have it, Raj should be here in a little bit. She should have some copies. If you don't have the finance to pick up a copy for Raj, then you can just go online and type in the Seven Holy Quran and read it. But remember what I said, because I told y'all, I did that. If your mind has not elevated to a certain degree, that book is going to be confusing. And now if you got somebody that can decipher it for you and start breaking it down, then that's a whole different story. But if you pick it up and it's throwing you off, you might want to put it down until mentally you're ready. We said common law a second ago. And last week we went in this book right here a little bit. And it says, so you've broken the law. So we're going to touch on this a little bit, and then we're going to play around with the Constitution for a little while. This book last week, this book was interesting. It was what knowledge ago? You stepped out?
Yes.
Yeah, it was King Knowledge that brought this book to my attention a few months ago. And like I said last week, I focused on something specific that he gave me, and we used it for a class. But I actually went through it last week, and it was crazy. And the reason I brought it in the class is because this book is a book from the United Kingdom, from Great Britain. And in this book, they talk about everything that we talk about. And it was funny to me because I also mentioned that when that sister, what's her name, Corinne Gaines?
Yeah, Corey.
Corinne Gaines? Okay. When she was assassinated, her assassination was put on that man right there. He probably was over here in Philly, or probably traveling on the road somewhere when she got assassinated. You ain't doing no shooting, did you? No. Taj ain't pulled no trigger. But her assassination was put on him. Islam.
Anyone know that she was also thrown down on the ground before that and lost her baby?
No, I didn't know that.
That's what she was talking about.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah, her assassination was put on Taj and was put on RB Bey Publications. So I thought about that when I read this, because in here it talks about proof of claim and proof of authority. It's right here in the book. And last week, so my wife said some people was asking for copies of the book. So what I did was I ordered some. I got them sitting on the table for any of y'all who want to get them. You can just get it for what it costs. It's like $11. I know I said 3 or 4 last week. But we want to touch on some of this, and then we want to go into that Constitution, and we want to look at some things right quick. Right here it says, what is law and what is a claim? And it says, understand this simple concept, and you or your lawyer/barrister will be able to defend your case appropriately. Now, 2 things that stand out in there. It says, yourself or your lawyer/barrister. Now, why does that stand out?
They're not even supposed to be there, like, but they stepping in for you and already. It's either you.
Let me read it again.
Proper person or.
Let me read it again. What is law? So first you got to know what law is. It doesn't say what is legal, does it?
Right.
It says what is law. So that means that legal and lawful is 2 different things. So you need to know what is law. And what is a claim? Understand this simple concept, and you or your lawyer/barrister will be able to defend your case appropriately. Go ahead, bro.
That means that you have the inalienable right to present yourself if you decide to go to that tribunal. But you can also give yourself up for warship status if you take that barrister.
So what the brother said is, by saying you or your lawyer/barrister will be able to defend your case properly. When it says you, and it says you first, you can present yourself and your case. Or you can turn yourself over to a worship status and let the lawyer/barrister represent you. Same stuff that we've always told people. Now, let me say this. If you can't present yourself properly, don't attempt to, because they will injure you. They got every intention on injuring you. So if you can't present yourself properly, if you can't stand in front of them and say, I'm Sasquatch Jones, and I'm here to present myself, I'm here on special presentation, but then don't even go in there. take somebody with you. Or just study and do some research, and then things will become clearer to you. Because that right there speaks loud to me. Because, I mean, understand this simple concept, and you or your lawyer will be able to defend your case appropriately. It says on the next page, do you have proof of claim? What's proof of claim? Huh? Go ahead, bro.
Proof of claim would be an injured party.
Meaning what?
Somebody saying that you did something to them.
Oh. So the brother here said corpus delicti. Same thing. Corpus delicti is the legal term, the lawful term for an injured party, right? So if there's an injured party, that means I did something to somebody, or I've taken something from somebody, right? So if I did something to you, me setting rights of knowledge, if I do something to you, then you have proof of claim, right? Now, if you decide not to press charges against me, how can the district attorney take it upon himself to say, no, I'm going to press charges? See why you got to be able to understand a little bit of this lawful stuff? It ain't difficult. Repetition is the mother of learning. Go over something a couple times, hear it a few times. You'll learn it. If you don't have, it says right here, do you have proof of claim? Now this, like I said, this is from the United Kingdom. This ain't from here. Do you have proof of claim? If I haven't done anything to you, if I haven't done anything to you, then who has proof of claim? Nobody. But if I did do something to him, he has proof of claim. You being the district attorney ain't got nothing to say.
Then we're gonna do a tort.
Because you're sitting there. So now he's the district attorney.
And also,
But
something that's not real, how could it have a loss to me that is real? So they come in the corporate name and say something corporate, established date, and versus me. I should be saying, well, bring that person in. You got to be flesh and blood.
so what he's saying is this. I get something in the mail. It says this. It says this.
State of Pennsylvania.
It says the city of Philadelphia versus Setenra Bey. Now, connotatively speaking, we're in or at the city of Philadelphia, right? All of this out here, inside a certain imaginary boundary, will be the city of Philadelphia. So then that means that when I go to that tribunal, everything that's out there needs to be able to come in there and speak and defend itself against me. Because the city of Philadelphia is challenging me, right? Right. But we know that the city of Philadelphia is a corporate entity, a fictitious entity on paper.
So we wouldn't have to go to court because they're trying to adjust.
That's not what I said.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, that's
No.
what you're saying.
The thing is this. The reason is this. I'm not going to sit here and say that you don't have to go to court. I'm just going by what you're saying. So I'm not going to put that energy into the air. What I'm going to say is this. Know how to properly defend yourself against the fraud. I'm not going to sit here and say don't go to court. If you can properly defend yourself against that fraud, then go shut them down.
No, I should have rephrased, I'm sorry. I understand, but I just really ignorant. But what I'm trying to say is, in real life, if we were in our proper person everybody and doing the right thing by common law and by universal law, right? Then we wouldn't have to go when they call because they're calling for a corporation and I'm flesh and blood. Right? That's, I'm just trying to understand in my mind, so my mind can get set to be able to rise, because I understand. So I was just asking.
Good question. And good statement. Because it wasn't so much a question as a statement. Right? As long as you have that comprehension, just like you said right there, and you understand the law, then you can properly defend yourself. Now, if we were all and our proper person, and we were all acting and moving on divine and universal principles, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Imagine the energy that would surround outside. Everybody was walking down the street a certain way. Y'all, for those people who went on the first Philly tour we did, the very first one, I know Miss Phyllis went. I don't know if anybody else was here. The very first Philly tour we did, let me tell you something. It was over 50 of us, right? The energy on the bus, when we got off the bus, was ridiculous. Because you got over 50 people, same mindset, same thought process, same energy, right? It was like walking on air. And it was like the sun was just following us. We walked through the park. Now, for everybody who's been on the Philly tour, you've been down into West Haven Valley, into Valley Green. When we got into that park, under those trees, and just walking on the path where our ancestors laid, and next to that water, it was ridiculous. The energy was crazy. If we had that kind of energy surrounding us every day, all day, man.
The sun would shine through, and the sky would be nice, the birds would have enough food, everybody would have enough food.
Do you have proof of authority? Outside of the claim, now you already talking about proof of claim. Do you have proof of authority? Now, like I said, where's this from? UK. Now, the reason they tied Corinne Gaines' assassination to Taj is because Taj was one of the first people that understood what's in that Constitution and said, asked them for a delegation of authority order. A DOA, a delegation of authority order. Do you have proof of authority? Where's your authority derived from? How do you have authority over me? This book is from the UK. This ain't from here. But the same principles that we talk about. Right here in this book. What time is it? 1:54. Okay. I'm going to breeze through this book. Like I said, I got a couple copies here if y'all want to, because I want to get onto that Constitution. I want to get onto that Constitution. Here's a question. The same thing as proof of authority, right? What if you ask them who owns me? Right? You just walked in. Who owns you? See how long it took her to think about it?
That's because she just come, she's fresh.
No. Watch this. What's 2 plus 2? I got that for time. See how I said what's 2 plus 2? She said 4 immediately. But I said, who owns you, Sheila? Automatically, you should be like me. I own me. Right? She thinks she owns me. She thinks she owns me, but I own me.
She does.
See, I expect her to say that. But you own me. Right? Yeah, we're going to see him after class. Right? So you can ask. Real talk, who owns me? Right? So then it says, who has a higher claim upon me than me? Who is the greatest authority on me? Me. These are questions that you can present if you had to. Then it says, will Elizabeth, being across the border, bear witness to the fact that she allegedly owns me? Is she going to admit that?
No.
Right? It says, if not, Elizabeth herself, will a representative of the Crown Prosecution Services or police or government bear witness that I am owned? If they were to do so, we would have a lot more to discuss regarding slavery or human trafficking.
Right.
Right? This from the UK. All the same stuff that I've learned, that y'all learned from the man that they put that woman's assassination. It was Stas that started bringing all this information out because nobody was putting it out there. Proof of authority. Elizabeth demonstrates through your actions that she will pay you to enforce, force being in capital letters, her rules and codes against me. Now, now when we put that, what was on the board at first when we came? Universal, divine, and common law. Did I say anything about rules? Did I say anything about codes, statutes, ordinances, policies? Okay. Elizabeth demonstrates through your actions that she will pay you to enforce her rules and codes against me. Who we talking about?
The police?
Police, the policy enforcers. Over here, we talking the CIA, the DEA, the FBI, our mercenaries. All these private agencies, all these private corporations who are not federally, they're not federal employees. They're agencies that broker with the fraudulent federal government.
Commercial mercenaries.
They get paid to kill. That's what he said. Who authorized her to do that? So, if they are all supposed to be federal employees, then that means that now corporate president of the corporate United States, Donald Trump, is their boss. Because they say that they're federal employees, they say that they're federal agencies. And if he's the president of that corporate federal government, then that means he's their boss, right?
Right.
So who authorized him to do all of that? Who?
They said,
Who?
they said,
No.
The people didn't authorize him to do that.
Nobody.
Congress?
the House of Representatives,
Nobody.
No. See, you guessed it.
the
You
government
guessed it.
body.
So we're gonna touch on that in a second, right? Because what I gave you is section 8, 9, and 10. Y'all see how I section 8, 9, and 10 of Article 1 of the Constitution. We're gonna talk about these legislative powers. Because that's what Article 1 of the Constitution talks about. Legislative powers. Talks about that Congress, that Senate, the House of Representatives. All of these people who were initially put in place to represent the people, to speak for the people. Not to abuse the people, not to take advantage of the people, not to lock you up and put you in jail, and put you in chains and have you working like a slave all day and night for minimal wages. But to put in place, they were put in place supposedly to uphold this law. It says monarch, king, queen, prince, princess, government, president, and prime minister are all legal fiction titles. The real people behind those titles have no more intrinsic authority over me than a postman or a cat. So we can replace those with president, vice president, secretary of state, governor, mayor, senator. What else is this? All fictitious titles. District attorney. Now, for those who are familiar with the Constitution, it say anything about a district attorney?
No.
It say anything about a mayor?
No.
Governor?
No.
Secretary of state?
No.
All of these people putting their foot on that. Where their authority come from? What's the supreme law of the land?
Constitution. In the treaty.
But in the treaty, it say something about the mayor and the governor and the secretary. It says that's all in the treaty, right?
No.
That's in the treaty of peace and friendship, right?
No.
Okay. So is it law?
No.
You know I gotta try to make people stop a little bit. How consent is gained? By agreement. Simply agreeing is enough. If I allow someone power over me, I consent to his or her actions. Last week we talked about voting. The UK is allegedly a democracy. So is the US. By voting for a candidate to govern me, I consent to be governed. It is easy as that. It is equally true for my own town council, city council, or county council, or something as seemingly innocuous as the local parish council. If I give my power to someone else, I consent to the resulting behavior. So, when you go to the voting booths, and it's crazy, like I ain't been to the voting booth since 2008, right? Before, when I was 21, when I was first able to vote, and I went to that booth, you didn't have to choose all Democrat. So the last time I went, you either had to vote Democratic or you had to vote Republican, and then you had to vote Liberal. So that means if you vote, then you voted for everybody Democratic. Everybody Democratic might not have your best interests, right? You might want to vote for some of these Republican cats, but you can't. You got to either vote this way or you got to vote that way. But by voting, once you go in it, because now when you vote, you know they want your autograph. So that way they can say, no, you agreed to that. You signed right here. And you voted, which means that whatever Ms. Phillips says, you agreed for her to do. Because you're not speaking for you. She is. And you consented to the authority. How do I consent? It says it right there. How do I consent? Now, the thing is this. Even though all of this stuff is going on, we're going to look into the Constitution and see if all of this stuff is law, if all of this stuff is right. Who had genuine authority? Many claim authority over me, but where is the proof of that authority? Could you produce proof to a court? Because you will be required to. Will you be able to supply a copy of an alleged contract where I have granted anyone authority over me? Because you will be required to. Will you be able to present a witness who has a higher claim upon me than me? You will be required to. That book, like I said, was brought to my attention by King out of jail. I got 4 copies of it over here for anybody who want a copy of it. Anybody who want a copy of it. And just like it said the Circle 7 Holy Quran, in the prophet's words, you can get it at cost. I never looked to make anything off of my people. You can get it at cost. That's a solid book. And what I like about it is it flat out talks about the same thing that we've been talking about and teaching for all these years. I'm going to, what time I got ready? 2:04? All right. I gotta get out the way. Dooley gonna talk to y'all a little bit today. Anybody got a copy of the Constitution with them, outside of what I gave you? All right, let's go to Article 1, Section 1. What you have in front of you is Section 8, 9, and 10. That's where I want to focus, but I want to read from 1 down to that so you can get some stuff in your head. Article 1, Section 1. Like I said, Article 1 of the Constitution talks about legislation. Section 1 says, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So Article 1, I forgot about this. Right there, we got Article 1, 17, 9, and 10. And what I wrote up there is, let's see how they legalize the fraud. But can anybody see what this says down bottom in red? March 27, 1861. Why did I put that date up there? Not you either. Anybody else? Somebody talk to me. Why did I put that date up there? March 27, 1861. Go ahead, bro.
Is that the date of the coup of 1861?
Is that what?
The date of the coup?
No. No. Not the date of the coup d'etat. Anybody else?
That was the first Constitution.
No. March 27, 1861. No. That is the date that Congress adjourned the Senate did. Right? So what does that mean? Okay, without day, so what does without day mean?
Without a day of return,
Without a day of return, or who ain't coming back? Y'all keep saying that.
the Republican form of government.
That means that Congress adjourned. That Congress adjourned, and they adjourned without a date for return, which means that they never went back to work. They are dissolved. They are no more. So then that means that what? The Congress that's there is what?
The fact
It's a
is,
fraud. Now, I'll put that date up there, and you heard me say Congress adjourned Senate D. Let me write Senate D up there so that way you can see how it's spelled, and then you just go Google it. You ain't got to take my word for it. Senedie. Don't take my word for it. Go look it up and see what Senate D means. And see, don't they tell you that the Congress adjourned Senate D without a day to return, and they never came back to work. So the reason I say that is this, because I need you to keep in mind that what we're going to read, what year was that Constitution written?
which one?
Adopted in 1787. Ratified. Adopted in 1787. Right? Congress adjourned when? 1861. Now, you got to keep in mind that we're in 2017. If they adjourned in 1861, you're pushing up on 150 years. That's 150 years. 156 of fraudulent activity.
That's what the Pope was talking about.
156 years, yo, fraudulent activity of passing on this. How many are now? Before we get into this, how many articles in the Constitution?
7.
I only know one Constitution.
7.
7. How many Bill of Rights? How many amendments?
27.
Thank you. 10. 10. Listen, I'm not, and when I stand here and I talk to you about the Constitution, we ain't talking about anything that went on past 61. Outside of them 7 articles and those 10 Bill of Rights. Now, if you do some research, you'll find out that it was 12 Bill of Rights. 13, the original 13 is after 61. It's after 61. It's after 61. Right? But anytime I talk to you, I'm talking about 7 articles, 10 Bill of Rights. We get 25, 26, 27, 28. Why? Because it was after Congress adjourned Senate D, but on top of that, something has to happen for that Constitution to get ratified. What is it?
The Constitutional Convention.
A Constitutional Convention. When was the last one held?
1787.
91. That's when they adopted the ratifications. But in order for the Constitution to be ratified, in order for the Constitution to change, there has to be a Constitutional Convention. And then there has to be a 2/3 concurrence of all of the Congress for the ratification to go through. Now, if the Congress adjourned Senate D in 61, and there ain't been a Constitutional Convention since 1700s, what are we talking about anything past 10 for? Because that means that it's not positive law. That means that it's negative law. That means that they've been operating fraudulently all this time and nobody's called them on. That's because we, the indigenous people, been asleep.
So does somebody have to like stand underneath, like, what is that, like, because I know that there's a seal that has to be deactivated or something. And somebody has to stand under it.
The people need to speak up. The people have to become aware, they have to become learned, and they have to speak up. Revolution comes from the people. And don't be scared, y'all, because whatever revolution is bloodshed.
Yeah, they're not down anything.
So be prepared. Section 1, Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Section 2. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained the age of 25 years and been a 7-year citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state in which he shall be chosen. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may include within this union, according to the respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons message. They all have a message. There's something in those books if you can interpret what you're reading. I couldn't interpret what I was reading when I first picked this up. That's why I threw. That's why I tossed it and chucked it. I said, all right, I'm going back to figure something else out. But whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Torah, whatever book it is that you have, and those ain't the only divine books, there are a number of them. Those are just some of the most popular. There's a number of them, but it's a message in all of them. So in chapter 1, it says, the creation and fall of man. It says, time never was when man was not. And I read that first line, and I pulled back up the book, and I'm like, my mind just got to racing. Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject unto change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. Bodies and souls of men are finite things, and they will change. Yea, from the finite point of view to the time, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. The man himself is not the body, nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. So, if man is not the body, if he is a soul and the spirit of Allah. But when I first got this book, I opened it up and I was reading through the first couple chapters. And I think by the time I got to chapter 3, I was like, that. I was like, nah, I'm not messing with this book. Started talking about Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and all of that other stuff. And I'm like, hold up. Now, you know what I'm saying? Now, I already know, so when I'm looking at here, but it wasn't until, I don't know what it was, but I picked it up one day, for whatever reason. And I went back to chapter 1, right? I'm reading chapter 1, and I'm like, maybe 2 years ago? Yeah, I picked it up, and I got to chapter 1, and I did this. Right? I was like, wait, hold up. And I started reading, and I'm like, I didn't see this the first time. You know what happened? I changed. I transformed from the guy that bought the book to the guy who has the book. Right? And we all have that capability. I'll just read this first highlighted part of chapter 1, and then I'll go back to what I was doing. That's the creation and fall of man, chapter 1, in the Circle 7 Holy Quran. And let me say this before I move on with that. This book says divinely prepared by Prophet Noble Ali, which of course means that he didn't write it. It was prepared by him. It was put together as a collective of works. Right? So you look at this book, and then you look at in the other book of divinity, and they all have lessons. Islam. I'd like to request the permission of my elders to speak.
That's for the brother. No.
We're going to rise and recite the Moorish prayer. All those who wish to join, stand up and face the east. Feet on a 45-degree angle. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. All those who do not wish to join in, please stay seated and please stay quiet. Allah, the Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through his holy prophet. Noble Talib. Amen. All right, y'all. I got a phone call yesterday from one of the elders, and was talking, saying that some of our people don't have no act right. They don't know how to act. A lot of people get real crappy attitude, real nasty attitudes. Talk to people any kind of way I want, and didn't care about hurting nobody's feelings, none of that. But nonetheless, you don't have to stay that way. Periodically, we talk about astrology, and we talk about getting astrological readings and charts and things like that. So when you look at a natal chart is a blueprint of the exact moment when you came through the East Gate, you came onto this planet. And it gives you a blueprint of your life. So it may say, you know, you have this quality, you don't have that one, you have this one, and you don't have that one. Just because you're born with a certain quality, if it's, let's just say it's a bad one, doesn't necessarily mean you got to keep it because you've been born with it. Right? All right, you got a nasty attitude. That's in your chart. I won't pick on no particular signs, but some astrological signs actually say that about people, that they're going to have a bad attitude because that's just what that sign gave you. So we won't pick on no particular signs. We won't pick on no particular people. I was just messing with you. But the thing is this. It doesn't have to stay that way. So when you come into the science and you come into this information and this knowledge, you should make some type of transformation. I'm gonna read a couple things out of this Circle 7 Holy Quran. But before I do, I'll hold it up so show all y'all familiar with it. And if anybody who's not familiar with it, you can take a quick peek at it. This, I say it all the time. Yeah, a lot of people get a lot of this information and they go buck wild. They go crazy. But one thing that's important is that once we start coming into this science, once we start coming into this information, a person should transform. A person should kind of like even though you might feel like you've been in a mold, you can break out of that mold. You might feel you've been stuck, but you can break out of that mold. It's like I said before, when I used that quote from DMX, where he said, that was stuck in my mind. Yeah, but it just escaped me just that fast. It doesn't have to be the way it is, you say it is, just because for the past 20 years every day it is. It doesn't have to be the way it is, you say it is, just because for the past 20 years every day it is. That means that, all right, I've been this way for 20 years. I'll be 41 in a couple days, 5 days. Yeah, 5 days, right? So the way I was when I was 20, I'm not at all that way now. In fact, the way I was when I was 35, I'm not that way right now. When I was 35, I was just coming into this information, but I had already been a scholar. I had already been studying and researching so much other stuff that when I got here, it was just like, all right, cool. Everything comes together now. Now everything is making sense. But from 20 to 30 to 35 to now, you're looking at a whole different dude. Because back then I was like loose cannon. I had